soul was free.
Welcome back to New Mexicast, everyone. In our last episode, I introduced you to this fabulous place, Puerto Peñasco, or Rocky Point, Mexico. We also talked about the stark contrast between the luxury condos lining the beaches and some of the impoverished communities next door. I introduced you to a Phoenix-based organization called I-68 that is building homes and basic structures for some of the families in need. Well, there are a lot of organizations that come to Rocky Point to help, and over the past few months I have had the privilege of meeting up with one of those organizations, Families Helping Families, to see some of the work that they are doing. Well, they put me in touch with an incredible videographer and photographer, Jonathan Cracroft, who generously provided his footage so that we could take a closer look at some of the projects that are being done here in this community. So without further ado, here is part 2 of my 4-part series on some of the fabulous service projects going on in Rocky Point. This episode and New Mexicast theme song are brought to you by Dorian Spencer. Some of you may get lucky enough to catch him busking around New York City, but fortunately for the rest of us, his Stone to Stone CD is now available at dorianspencer.com. For at least 2 years, 12-year-old Jose Antonio Fuente Ramirez and his little brothers, Giovanni and Alexandro, have been showing up at job sites like this, eager to get to work.
But these little boys have worked on the job for 2 years, and last year they worked on this job. I mean, they were right up on the scaffolding with us. They were young. In fact, they were almost in the way.
Yeah, a little bit of a nuisance from time to time.
But you know, frankly, they were there. And they felt like they were working.
And the fact that they wanted to help made a big impression on Ralph Pugh and Jared Parker, 2 of the men in charge of these construction sites. So they gladly put them to work. In fact, there are a lot of young people working here. Hammering, sawing, tarring, and doing just about every other job possible to help build houses. The reason so many young people are welcome to help here is because this is no ordinary construction project. It is a mission trip by an American nonprofit group working to transform the impoverished communities of Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, or Rocky Point, one nail at a time.
Families Helping Families is really the vernacular for the company, and that's the name we go by, and it has a tradition of building homes for needy families in Rocky Point, Mexico, and it combines the volunteerism and financial contributions of United States citizens predominantly who want to spend their time and money to improve the lives of our Mexican friends down here in Rocky Point.
But that description hardly does justice to the massive, coordinated effort of Families Helping Families. You need only spend a day on one of their home building projects to see just how unique it is. On this Christmas week construction trip, nearly 200 people traveled to Rocky Point to build 3 houses and put the finishing touches on a home built by the group several months earlier. There are brothers working side by side, sisters sawing, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, and even grandparents pitching in. This is a family effort that began long before crossing the border into Mexico.
Some of them hear about the program and they just aren't able to write a check. They actually have to raise money or do fundraisers in their family,
right?
Bake sales or send out letters to friends and family or whatever. They raise the money, and they raise the money so that we can buy the product or the building materials, the block, the framing, the roofing material, so they can build the house.
And that is one of the biggest reasons Families Helping Families has been able to build more than 24 solid homes already, because the organization ensures families are investing both time and capital into each home they build.
If we were to divide up the funds contributed this year, about 85% to 90% comes from the families themselves. We don't have large companies who are benefactors who write checks and then people come and do the work. We've learned that our friends and their friends and the kind of the tentacles of association reach out, and people become much more vested in this project when they write the checks themselves to contribute, to buy the materials, and then physically come down and do the work. That combination has served us well, and the people continue to return and really enjoy the project. We don't allow people to come down and just do the work with someone else donating the money. We like them to both be together in one.
In fact, every person on this job site has contributed something monetarily toward the homes they are building, either from their own private funds or fundraisers they've held back home. Everyone, that is, except Jose Antonio and his brothers. Their physical labor is literally all they had to give.
As my daughters befriended these 3 young boys, who were then probably 7, 10, and 11, they began to trust them enough that they took my daughter back to their little house. And so my daughters became aware of the situation. And then that's when we all collectively, probably about a year later, went by and looked at their house.
This is the wash area where they can wash their clothes.
When they saw the conditions that Jose Antonio, his mother, and 5 siblings were living in, along with many other families like his, they were reminded in a very real way of the tremendous needs there are in this community.
To use the word house is a very loose term. It was the best word to describe it would be a lean-to, for lack of a better word, or if you can imagine a corral area with stables along the wall, that would be a better description.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Of where this family lived. And
one of these little corrals,
yeah.
You stepped down into it. They didn't have any, it was on a dirt floor, they didn't have any roofing over the top.
None.
It was a piece of plywood. They actually put clothes up on the roof to absorb the water so it wouldn't leak in. But it was down in a hole, so any water that came into there didn't have any way to run off. It stayed in there. It was moist and damp. And
well, and a common, what we would affectionately call an outhouse, or latrine, a common outhouse for about 6 different groups of people living there, a common wash area that was deplorable, and not much in the way of personal hygiene or privacy.
Well, they have been building homes for the community for years, seeing firsthand the terrible conditions that these young boys were living in affected them deeply.
Okay, a whole bunch of people start nailing along here.
And reminded them of why Families Helping Families keeps returning to build homes year after year.
The American families really love it. We hear from the parents all the time that it was the best thing for their teenage children, especially, to come to Mexico, enjoy the environment in the community, and see the environment, the people here, their culture, and to appreciate everything they have at home. It's been marvelous.
But as important as the home building is here, it is the bridge building, from one family to another, from one community to another, that is having the greatest impact of all.
when the kids first meet you, you are a friend. Well, first you're a stranger, then you become a friend. But then they start saying to you, we are no longer friends, we are family. And so when they call you abuelo, you know you've gone from being a stranger to a friend to family, and it's pretty tender.
In Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, for New Mexicast, I'm Rosalinda Román. Coming up on our next episode of New Mexicast, part 3 of this special 4-part series on the service projects that are being done here in Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, including a chance to go inside some of the homes of the people who are living as squatters along the railroad tracks here. Until then, I hope you continue to enjoy New Mexicast, and thank you for all your support. I'm Rosalinda Román. Part 3 and 4 of this 4-part series about service projects in Rocky Point or Puerto Peñasco, Mexico will be coming up next week. Until then, thank you so much for supporting New Mexicast. I'm Rosalinda Román.
Like a dream I had.
New Mexicast theme song is New Mexico by Dorian Spencer. Additional support for New Mexicast provided by volunteers are building homes and changing lives. Thank you, Wind, for waiting until I finished. Appreciate it. Hi.
Oh, sorry, I just moved.
No, that you can move. I'm talking about.
No, I leaned back and the whole thing
it's-
leaned back.
Okay, you just don't fall back. No, it's okay. I can always ask them the same question 5 times.
You can ask us multiple times.
Yes, the same question.
Is it all editable in case we really mess up?
Yeah, it's not.
Thank you. Or in case Rod starts making faces at us?
Tres abuelos.
Yeah.
Abuelas, yeah. And the abuelas, yeah. He likes the abuelas. Yes, my name is Jared Parker. What else?
And what is your title with the organization?
Whatever. I'm the treasurer.
You're the tesoro.
Yeah, I'm the treasurer, and I love that because when Ralph says, "Why did we write that check?" I say, "Because I was the treasurer."